When I think about my favorite music piece, or I think about my favorite musicians, I ask the question, hey Phil, what keyboard or piano did Herbie Hancock play in Watermelon Man, or which piano did McCoy Tyner play in Peresina, my favorite musical piece of all time? Or I ask, which mics did Take 6 use when they recorded Spread Love? You see, the equipment that was used is not known or perceived by a lot of the listeners. What is perceived is the excellence and the brilliance. And that's why when the topic came up of which keyboard should I buy for a live performance, my take on it was different from a lot of people. You see, music is a universal language. It connects us, it moves us, it connects the layman to the professional, and it gets stuck in our heads for days. This global phenomenon is fueled by countless instruments, from the soaring strings of a violin to the thumping bass of a kick drum. Whether it's Gretsch or Pearl or a Zajan cymbal is inconsequential to the listener. The global musical instrument market is booming, projected to reach a staggering $20.4 billion by 2027. But here's the surprising twist. In the heat of live performance, for most audiences, the high-end keyboard might not be the secret sauce. Think about it. When you hear your favorite musician in a packed stadium, you have no clue whether what is being played is a Pa5X or a PSR SX700 or a Genos 2 or DGX. And here's the thing about live performance with keyboards. For most audiences, a well-played DGX 670 can hold its own against the mighty Genos 2 or the PSR SX, and I dare say the Nord Grand. What is the great equalizer in live performances? It's not the keyboard, my friends. The great equalizer is external speakers and outdoor sound. So for those of you that ask me the question, Phil, what should I do? I'm a pianist, I'm a musician, I want to go on tour, which keyboard should I buy? The great equalizer is not the keyboard. A standard mid-level keyboard will sound very similar to the higher end ones to the average consumer. You see, in live settings, particularly outdoors, the subtle sonic differences between high-end and mid-range keyboards gets blurred by the external speakers, by the stereo versus mono configurations, by the open air environment. The average concert goer, even those with some musical knowledge, might not pick up on the finer details of the sound source. A well EQ'd PA system can make a DGX sound fantastic. I've shown it time and time again on this channel. If you haven't watched my video of where I created an orchestral piece with the DGX by multi-tracking and multi-layering, you should go check it out and listen. Because the power of the instrument lies in the mix. Let's be honest. An engaging performance with a DGX can leave a stronger impression than a mediocre one with a Genos. Your stage presence, your musicality and connection with the audience matters more, my friends. The audience is there for the music, not for a sonic spec sheet, not for a Genos versus a KORG, not a Pa5X versus a Genos 2. Now, for pop, rock, and other genres that rely heavily on vocals and electronic instruments, the nuanced details of piano samples or orchestral strings becomes less critical. As long as you're not playing a C sharp augmented fifth instead of a C major, the world will be rather normal for the listener. Trust me. The DGX's quality sounds will blend seamlessly in the mix when played right. leaving the focus on the song and your performance. Let's talk about the 70s. Don't you love 70s music? One of my favorite 70s musicians of all time, still relevant till today, is Stevie Wonder. His 70s hits transcended the era, not because of the Moog synth or the clavinets he played. It's because of the soul he poured into them. Very recently, Stevie has been seen playing the Motif XF8. I have the Motif XF8. Sounds like a different instrument when Stevie plays it. You see what I'm saying? So we can recreate sounds from the 70s with this incredible hardware and software that we have, VSTs and the like, but replicating the feeling behind them. That's the true magic. I feel a lot of musicians are caught up on the gear instead of the chops. Imagine sitting in a room full of brand new top-of-the-line keyboards. Now imagine Stevie Wonder sitting down at a dusty Casio from the 80s. I mean, you know, those really old Casios. You actually shudder to think about those, right? But in Stevie's hands, that Casio would come alive. I gave Stevie a toy piano in my dreams. He'd make that thing sound like a Steinway. You see, it's about the creativity, the passion, and the message that Stevie would channel through it. The instrument, my friends, is just a paintbrush. I really want you to take this away, because I've gotten this question a lot of times, and while it's a great question, I don't want you to get caught up in paralysis by analysis. Think of Stevie Wonder's music as a masterpiece painting. The keyboard, the synth, the instruments. They're simply the artist's tools, the paintbrushes. The true brilliance lies in the composition, the lyrics, the emotional depth. I grew up in an art household. My mom's an artist, and she would draw all these great works, paint these awesome paintings of the Queen, Muhammad Ali, and a lot of dignitaries. And the same paintbrushes and pencils were available to me. But when I tried, it was a weak representation of her greatness. It's just to show you, my friends, it's not about the gear. It's about what you do with it. The same musician playing a DGX 670, sounding bad, will sound the same way on a Genos 2. Because it's not about that. You see, another artist could use the same brushes as I gave in my illustration and not capture the brilliance of the other artist who has the chops. So, what I want you to think about, my friends, when you make your choices about which instrument to buy, it's a sobering reality, but think about why you're buying it. Am I buying this keyboard because it's the top of the line and I have the illusion in my head planted in there by advertising and just share social media observations that everyone's getting a nod, I'll get a nod, and I'll be one of the gang, and I'll look good, and I'll sound good. Oh no, you may not sound good. You'll sound whatever you are right now. Okay? So, I want you to really look inwardly. In a controlled recording environment, the superior sound quality of a Genos 2 could become more apparent. The superior sound quality of a Nord Grand could be more apparent. But not to everyone. To the average listener, it may very well sound the same. I've done experiments in the past where people say the lower price keyboard actually sounds better than the higher price keyboard. For professional recordings, especially instrumental pieces, the Genos richer samples and dynamic control. Oh my goodness, what a difference. Even just the plain Genos. Because those subtleties, they come alive, yes. But beyond studio recordings and recordings played by a trained ear, if you're dealing with the average listener, don't waste your time thinking that in a live performance on a mono stage, even a stereo stage, but with poor EQ or with average EQ, is going to make you sound better by using a different keyboard. It won't. A lot of this stuff is psychological. Why did I keep my Trident from 24 years ago? The reason why I kept it is I realized it's not about the glitter. It's about the chops. DGX pianos are fantastic live workhorses for most live gigs, particularly in pop, rock settings. The audience is going to be captivated by your antics, your performance, your leaping around the stage if you do that. I'm not saying begin to do that. But it's not the specific keyboard model. Which guitar was Hendrix playing when he put that thing behind his head and started doing all his stage antics that blew people away? No one cared about the guitar. People cared about what he was doing with his guitar. This is food for thought, my friends, because I know lots of you have this question. When we talk about musical performance, there are two factors at play. One is instrument proficiency, and the second is adaptability in performance. A skilled musician is often able to deliver a captivating performance regardless the quality of their instrument. For example, a talented guitarist might be able to extract a beautiful sound from an old or inexpensive guitar. I could give George Benson any old guitar. He'll make that thing sing. That demonstrates technique, emotional expression that resonates more than the sound quality alone might suggest. When it comes to pianos, put an average musician on a Steinway. They'll still be average. They're not suddenly going to become superhuman or Liberace. They're going to be the same person on a different instrument. Now, secondly, when it comes to musical performance, let's talk about adaptability in performance. Musicians frequently face varying acoustic settings, and they have to adapt to different instruments. If you've ever been on tour, been on the road, you go to this venue and everything's different, the acoustics just mess you up. And that's one thing we haven't even talked about, because it's not just about the great mix. The mix has to be tailored to the room, and the room filled with people, the right amount of people. So there are many factors, my friends. Can you imagine sound bouncing off everywhere? And you bought this $10,000 keyboard because you wanted to sound better? Well, your sound very often gets lost in the shuffle. When I hear my favorite musicians play, I hear their expression. I'm not looking to see what guitar B.B. King was playing. What bass is Abraham Laboriel playing? I'm not looking for that, and I know some of you might be, but I'm appreciating the music. So I'm saying all of this to make you focus on the things that count. Instrument proficiency, adaptability in performance. When it comes to music production, as I mentioned earlier, in the studio, where high-quality equipment can enhance the clarity and richness of the sound, it's ultimately the producers and the musician's skill in arranging, performing, and editing. I've shown this on the channel where I take a song from scratch, never thought of the words, and I begin building it from scratch. And then I multi-track. And I've done that with the DGX, and I've done that with the Motif. They both sound good. It's not about the instruments alone. Now, I'm not saying go get a beat-up Casio from the 70s. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying when you need to make purchasing decisions, you should ask yourself, why do I want this keyboard? Do I want it to perform in the studio? Or do I want it to perform on stage? If you want it to perform in the studio, just be aware of this. These days, regarding what you're doing, whether you're sequencing all the instruments or you're sequencing just one instrument, you also need to understand nothing trumps a real live instrument. Nothing. Bass, drums, trumpet, saxophone, any kind of horn, even piano. Hey, even piano. This is why I don't get bent out of shape, because even a real piano is a real piano. And the pianos that are on keyboards, no matter how awesome they are, you cannot do a chick career on them. You cannot. You cannot stand up and go to the strings and the mallets and play with the strings inside the engine of the piano. I know some of you are like, Phil, you're on your own. I don't do that stuff. Well, I do. I make use of everything on the piano, the body of the piano, the insides of the piano, the strings. I pluck the strings in performance sometimes. So it's still not a real piano anyway. So what are you fussing about? You might as well just go get a Steinway VST if it hurts you that bad. Because a few people ask me, can I play my VSTs through the speakers in my DGX or through the system? And the answer was yes, of course. I demonstrated it. So when it comes to music production, be concerned, but again, be concerned within reason. I have my Steinway VST. I have other VSTs for electric pianos and pianos. I have the Spectrasonics suite of VSTs for drums. I have the Spectrasonics VST for bass. Those basses sound rather real. They're still not real, but they sound a lot more real than any of these keyboards for miles. When it comes to learning and development, focusing too much on obtaining the perfect instrument can be a distraction for learning musicians. Fundamental practices like ear training, rhythm, and theory are crucial, and those can be honed without high-end equipment. And this is why I tell people, if you're looking to learn piano, you really want to get good in piano, the DGX is your best option, because the keys on some of the other keyboards I've gotten questions on are not the standard piano bed for the keys. So if that is your target, if you want to get good with the piano, I would recommend the DGX. If you want to do crazy things in the studio and you want the nuances, the ultra-sensitive nature of the trombone or the saxophone or some of the other instruments on the Genos, I guess the Genos is your choice. Like if you do commercials and you are mimicking all the instruments as you've seen me do, then I can understand that. But if you're playing with other musicians, what do you typically play? Think about it. Piano, electric piano, clave, strings, saxophone maybe, if that. Most people avoid the sax because it sounds like garbage on many of these tools. The one I've had a lot of success with is the DGX, by the way. The soprano saxophone is great. What else would you play on there? Maybe a vibraphone, some bells. But beyond that, my friends, what else do keyboardists do? I know some of you might mimic other instruments, but I believe, for all intents and purposes, for live stuff, the DGX can hold its own. Okay? So, in music, just like in other fields, while good tools can enhance the process, they do not guarantee success. A musician's talent, practice, creativity, and ability play a far more significant role in their ability to engage and move the audience. I tell you, if I put Stevie on a Genos, a Motif, and a Trident, you wouldn't know the difference. You would say they all sound good, see. So I want you to adopt this perspective. This perspective fosters a more profound appreciation for the art of music itself, emphasizing the human element in music expression. Thus, only a poor workman blames their tools. Only a poor musician blames their instrument. Only a poor pianist blames their piano. Only a poor keyboardist blames their keyboard. It serves as a reminder, my friends, that in music, the spirit and skill of the performer or producer are what truly makes the difference. Whether you're making a decision about the sax to purchase or you're making a decision about the trumpet or bass or guitar, my friend. Same thing. Focus on skill. Don't break the bank, because ain't nobody noticing the difference between one level of instrument that is not that too far away and the other. One of the channels I'm subscribed to is called Better Sax, and he did an experiment one day and put a cheap old Amazon sax next to his $4,000 plus or even more dollar sax. And the results? Mind-blowing to me, because that measly $200 saxophone, soprano sax, or whatever it was, sounded not too far away. In fact, he did a blind experiment and asked people to guess. And only a few of the trained ears were able to guess, but a lot of the others actually said, you know what, I prefer that one. That should be a wake-up call, my friends. And there are many similar experiments done on social media. You should check them out. But regardless what you're planning to do, I hope this gives you insights, and I hope it gives you the mindset to be decisive. Go for whatever you want to purchase, and then when you buy it, just remember, you still got to put the work in. You still got to learn the instrument. You still got to learn the nuances. I remember when I just bought my DGX, I didn't know half of the tricks I know today. So I was limited in what I was doing. But as I began to learn, I started sounding better. So there's also an instrument learning curve. And as you go through that curve, you get better sounding on that instrument in particular. When you go to a new instrument, you may have to learn a little bit more to become even as good sounding as you did on a previous instrument. But once you get there, the sky's the limit. One more very important point. For you, you might just want to get the instrument of choice, not for the audience. This could be more for you. It could be more for your mental health as a musician. If you have a taste for great, rich, superior sound, I don't begrudge you. Neither should anyone. So if your reason for going towards a particular instrument is for your advantage, your enjoyment, by all means. I don't love playing poor, beaten up old keyboards. I love mint, crisp piano sound. And I'll go to any length to get such a piano to record on. I may not be able to purchase such an instrument immediately, but I sure would go to any length. And that's why back in those days, I would spend a lot of money going to studios that had the piano that I truly enjoyed. Not the studios that had lackluster instruments. You see, recording is very important because once it's down, it becomes a statement of record. It becomes part of your brand. When it comes to enjoying music, it's a whole different thing. When it comes to enjoying your playing, you enjoying your playing, I can understand. But this is majorly for my friends who had questions and who were on the line, on the fence. Because while it's good to shop around, we don't want to do that ad nauseum. We got to make a decision and not look back and not feel bad. But remember, you've always got 30 to 45 days, depending on the store, to return it. So maybe what you could do, you could purchase an instrument, you could play it, you could take it for a test run, and if it holds up and you like it, all good. If you don't, you can return it. I hope this gave you some ideas in your sense making. I wish you all the best in your purchasing decision. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share with other musicians who are on the fence.